Welcome to Base Coverage. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for supporting to the show. Don't forget to subscribe here, drop a comment, like a video, share with a friend. We cover ELF ball and we gotta keep this thing going.
We doing everything they talk about. You know I'm everything a boss about. Not putting work and gotta toss them out. I'm really biting, they just barking out. I'm really riding, they just parking now. His street, what to talk about. See the big H when I'm walking out.
Man. It's been 2.5 years in the making for this one, but I'm finally glad to get the opportunity to get this guy on. I think he's been ducking and dodging me ever since I pronounced his name wrong in the interview with Zach. You guys have a new head man, right? I hope I'm saying his name. Is it Widebender?
Weidinger, I think. If he sees this and I pronounce it wrong, I'm sorry, coach, but I think it's Weidinger.
Heading into his first year in ELF, but all good, all fun. And, we've been exchanging texts and emails trying to get this organized, and we finally did. So finally get to welcome this guy to the locker room, to base coverage, Coach Andrew Weidinger. What's
Thank you very
going
much.
What's going
Thank
on,
you.
boss man? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. And I could pretend like I don't remember you mispronounced my name, but that's front and center. So that's I finally over that, a couple years later. So okay, let's do this.
That's the driving force to your motivation in terms of making sure people know your name correctly. And you
Yeah.
definitely you definitely did a good job of that. How's everything going, man?
Good, good. I love the off season. That's my favorite part of football. So we're having a great time, and we just started back up with our install, and I was on a roll last night. I was going until about 2 a.m. getting videos put up on our Google Classroom. So we're getting started, and we're getting ready for this next season.
Hey, just, if I'm being honest, real quick, before we even dive in, I don't even know how you guys do it in terms of like coaches in general, because everyone asks me, especially coming out of college, like, would you ever get into it? And I'm like, if I'm gonna put in all that work to watch film, to grind, to study, I better at least be playing some type of snaps on the weekend. So kudos to you guys for putting in all that work, and that kind of leads me into like my first question. Obviously, your coaching experience is documented in terms of where you've been, where you come from. Obviously, divvying into the highest level at the NFL, coming to Europe, and kudos to you because a lot of people who've had that experience wouldn't even give this European side of things even a look. So for me, the first question I would have is like, why do you coach? Why do you keep coming back to this type of lifestyle?
Yeah, when I left the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I was like, I'm done with this. Like, never again. I'm sick and tired of football. And it's funny, I had kind of told some of the guys that I was working with, like there was the Alliance of American Football was starting up, which had come before the XFL came back, right? And this is pre-pandemic. And there was a new team they were going to put in Phoenix there. And I was like, the only team I'd really even consider working for is probably that team in Phoenix. But otherwise, I'm going home and I'll figure out life. And it with like a week or two left in our season, I texted an old buddy of mine, and I'd seen that he'd been fired from a job in college, and was like, well, really sorry to see it. What are you up to? And he said that he was going to the team in Phoenix in the Alliance of American Football. And I was like, well, shoot, do they have spots? And he was like, well, let me check. And we got it done in a week and a half. And so we finished up with the Bucks. On our last game was like January 1st, and then training camp opened January 3rd in San Antonio. And that was brutal. That was brutal. You can imagine an NFL season. You're talking like 6 straight months with maybe like 5 days off, 2 days at the end of camp, uh, bye week. You get a few days off, and maybe with a Thursday night game. So maybe it's a couple more days than that. But it's 6 straight months of solid work, right? And then we immediately transitioned into another training camp. By the time that thing folded, I was like, never, ever again will I do anything with football. They told us on a Tuesday it was over. We were sitting there, we were kind of getting ready to game plan, but we had an inkling this was going to happen. And they start like throwing ideas on the board, and I'm like, "What are we doing? Like, let's hang tight and see if this thing's getting shut down." Got shut down. Don't tell anybody. I walked into the break room, I grabbed the box of K cups, and I went home so that I could make my own coffee. All right, so that was my that was my severance pay right there, was the K cups from the Alliance of American Football. But I was out for a season and a half or so, and it's funny, we were doing estate planning and working on our will, and the guy who was our lawyer, his kids were good high school football players here in Phoenix. and he had like pictures up on the wall in his office. And so I started talking with him. I ended up doing some work with them, just helping train, running routes, teaching them some things. And that got me kind of back into it. And Coach Samel from the Panthers followed me on Twitter. I had a little Twitter account. I'm checking it out, and I'm like, "What the hell is this like? This looks kind of cool. Like this looks like the real deal." And so I got on a Zoom call with him. We talked some ball, and he got me to sign up on Euro Players. And then when I got that offer to go to Potsdam, it was talking to my wife, and it's like, "What the hell are we doing? Are we really like we were really going to go to Germany for a few months to do this? Like that's crazy." And we finally decided, yeah, let's just go ahead and do it. And it's been a cool deal, and I love it. It's been awesome.
Yeah, shout out to Euro players. For those that may not know now, because obviously there's a couple different avenues you could go, especially with like the podium. Euro players was the way to go. And obviously players used to dive into every coach inbox, trying to get on team. But that's how you eventually got your start to go play ball in Europe. I should know this, but what year were you at Potsdam?
This was my third season in Europe, so coming out of COVID, what would that be? 2021-ish?
2020. Okay. So
Yeah.
I just missed you because I played for the Columbus Broncos and that they were in the EF one of those leagues where it was like you play in the GFL and then you play international. Long story
Okay.
short, they went on to play Milan, Luke's team, and they ended up winning the whole thing. But I would have just missed you, I think 2 years prior, even though they had a good team. But that's kind of I feel like that's kind of how like coaching works. Like you say you're done, you feel like you're ready to move on, and you get a little piece of it again, and all of a sudden that joy just keeps coming back. And I feel like that's kind of like the coaching world. Within that those coaching responsibilities, obviously you became the head coach of Barcelona, uh, coming off a rough year one in the ELF, and who knew what type of team they were going to be, but became the head coach there, completely turned the whole organization around, or was part of the whole change around over there as the head coach. The success is documented, and then you go the following year back to being an offensive coordinator, but for the Rhein Fire, who has a deep, rich history. NFL Europe days. Obviously, Jim Tomsula was there. A couple of alumni that was part of that organization. But some of your biggest impacts was the development you had on the players, in particularly, Zach Magic Edwards and Jadrian Clark. Obviously, we just mentioned Zach coming off a rough year one, complete 360, in year two for the Dragons. Jadrian, I don't know if you know, but the stint with Jadrian, was that he couldn't win the big game. And obviously, you guys took care of that this year. You know, in terms of you, like, when you talk about like the relationship between a quarterback and a coach and the developmental process of that, how are you getting the best out of these guys? And what is it that maybe some coaches may be missing the mark? We're not seeing more success from that position.
Yeah, so I'm a firm believer in this that the most important people in football are the players, and the most overrated people in football are the coaches. There's no doubt in my mind that that's the case. Like, I am the most overrated. I was the most overrated guy in Barcelona. I'm the most overrated offensive coordinator for the Rhein Fire. Like, there's no way around it. Okay, players win games, not coaches. So the truth is the development of those guys developed me. Uh, I took what I know and was able to say, okay, we got to figure out what that guy does well from what I know, and I can teach to everybody else. And then once we figured out what they do well, then we try to just use we that's our base, and then we can expand off of that. So the things that they're good at is what we try to focus on. And I think that maybe we get caught up in our league a little bit of like, these are the plays we have and this is what we run. Okay. And if the quarterback can't do it, he's got to go or whatever. And, play to your player's strengths. Like if this is Zach, Zach's going to scramble around, he's going to see his first guy. And if the pocket breaks down, he's going to scramble around, he's going to find somebody else. And so it's like, all right, well, let's just make it, it's going to be a 1-2 read. And then, hey, Zach, if it goes to hell, get out of there. Like, I'd always tell him, like, the Spidey sense starts tingling. Like, you do what you do. All right.
Are we magical,
Bail
Zach?
me
Are
out.
we
I
magical?
call a I call a bad play, Zach. You go bail me out. And then Jadrian's the same. I don't know what Jadrian's bad at. Jadrian, he's extremely accurate as a passer. The guy's got good pocket presence. I do know what he's bad at. He can't run. Kid can't run at all. He's so slow. Oh my
Adrian
goodness.
got no wheels. No
Hard to
wheels.
watch. Hard to watch. I'm hoping that he's tuning in. Uh, but he makes it so easy to game plan stuff, especially we did such a good job game planning and executing in the red zone this last year. and his accuracy and his decision making. The guy does not make bad decisions. He did an exceptional job, and really, I'm not lying. Like those guys, they develop me. I just try to help them play to their strengths.
Well, and listen, it's a lot of coaches can't do that though. I think, listening to you talk and listen to a couple other coaches that I spoke to that have had success in Europe in general, the coaches that can't relate, adapt, or understand that concept, it's for me personally, I think it's an ego thing in terms of fitting players into the system versus creating a system around the players type of situation. And that's a conversation that is gonna be had to the wheels come home. But ultimately, like you said, like, you know, players win games, not coaches. And obviously, your model and your game plan for that has been documented over your first 2 years, within the league. As an offensive coordinator, is there an art to calling a game?
No, there is no art. Is calling plays is the most overrated thing in all of. I know I'm saying a bunch of things are overrated. Calling plays is overrated, but game planning is not overrated. Understanding what your opponent does and how to approach that, how to attack it, what should work against that, and how to adjust, those things are not overrated. And so your this is I can't I'm going to say you're Andy Reid's of the world. Okay, I probably shouldn't include him in this conversation. Okay, because maybe he is an artist when it comes to it, but I guarantee you he's a great game planner before he is a great play caller.
Yeah.
Right. And so they've got a plan as they enter that game. But it's from your -10 to the +20, it's you're running your base offense, right? You're running your plays. You just kind of dressed them up the way that you think gives you an advantage against this team. Where you make your money as a play caller is situationally in the red zone, third downs, 2-minute type stuff. That's where you make your money. That's where it becomes more of an art form. More of you have to be on top of what you're doing. But the rest of it, you're running your base offense. And if you did a good job during the week of understanding how to approach your opponent, then you're probably going to do a good job on game day of actually, executing the game plan.
I'm actually glad you mentioned that. Situationally is the key aspect of it because I got some questions, especially coming from a defensive mind, and maybe you could help explain what's going on in certain circumstances. But one of the questions I want to ask situationally is what's the thought process running sprint out on in the red zone?
Well, it's a quick hitter, right? And
Yeah,
it makes it a simple
that's
read, like
limited
either
space though.
right. It's either one, this guy's open or he's not, and then it's probably 1 to 2, and the ball's coming out, and if it's not there, throw it away. But a lot of times, like we had back-to-back 2-point plays in the Paris game. They hit one against us, and then we hit one against them, and it was the same play, and it was both sprint to the right with a quick out. And there's it's one-on-one, right? And if I think my dude can beat that guy, and if I know if I get into a certain formation, they might give me this leverage or that leverage, then yeah, let's do it. All right. I'm also not a huge fan of sprint out. And we're fortunate that we don't have to get into that world because we've got a good offensive line. Some teams, you get forced out of
Yeah,
the pocket because you're just not
definitely
good
a
up
way to it's
front.
definitely a way to hide some deficiencies on the line.
Yeah. But it takes away, you do take away about half that field. Like,
Yeah.
we used to run back in the day, we'd run sprint out and we'd have like a little quick out and a flag route in behind it and a shallow cross coming as the check down. And that shallow cross got hit one time in my 7 years in Atlanta. Like it was either going to that quick out or it was getting thrown away. And I'm not a big fan of it. It's just not something that we typically do, but some teams do it and some teams have success with it. It's all a matter of just what you practice and what you get good at.
Well, I'm glad we agree on that because I mean I'm not calling it, but I'm just like, why are they doing it? I don't understand. Another thing that I think is getting a little overrated and almost like a throwaway play is, your third and longs. It's, natural running back screen or draw? Is that more so just, you know, field position for, setting up the punt? Or are you looking to seriously thinking that maybe this could hit and maybe we get some type of gain out of it, maybe go for it or we get the first down? But I feel like now it's just so obvious. Like, yeah, it's not 100%, but it's like watch screen, watch draw. Like, what are your thought process on that?
Well, and that's been universal since I was in high school.
Yeah, I know.
Screen and draw, right? Alert, screen, and draw. And the reason is like third and long, the defense knows you're throwing the ball, right? And so all of a sudden, especially in our league, you start getting all the drop eight and like where are you really gonna throw that ball? And so the safe call, the safe call is the screen, the safe call is the draw, because if you try to throw into that cover, something could go horribly wrong where you're better off punting than throwing a pick, right? And so I get it. I do understand why teams do that, and we do some of that. Um, Game planning third down is a real pain in the butt because there's times where you're like, they're dropping eight. Like that's designed to not, there's nowhere to throw the ball when they drop eight.
Yeah.
And so you're trying to figure out where you need to go with it, where maybe they're weak in their drop eight. But that's why it exists, is that it's just defense is geared up to stop the pass, right? And so you're just, what's the safest thing I can do, and just praying to God I can get that first down or get close to it and go for it on fourth.
No, I hear you. I think one thing that I don't see most teams do anymore is sprint draw. I feel like sprint draw used to hit a lot. Maybe this is just I'm dating myself. This is just a back in the thing type of situation, but I feel like not a lot of teams utilize sprint draw. Obviously, when it comes to screen, you're seeing more tunnel screen, bubble screens, rocket screens, and the screen game is developed. But now it's just like I don't feel like the draw game has, took the next step in that sense. And there's not much you could do from it, but you still there's a variety of things you could go in that aspect of it.
No,
Um,
shoot, you're old school. Sprint draw is old school. Like you
yeah.
definitely dated yourself. It's funny you say that. Our offensive line coach in Barcelona, I'll give a shout out to Coach Cat right here.
Shout out
There was
Coach
like
Cat.
from like week 6 on, he was like, "Should we run sprint draw this week? Like we could do sprint draw." And he'd pull up the old YouTube clips of them running it when he's at Texas State, and it looked good. Like it looked, and it's a funny looking play, right? But this thing's
Yeah,
hitting every single time, and I'm
yeah,
like, "Damn, it looks good." Like I've never been on a team that's done it, and like I don't know that we need to add new stuff. And if we're throwing the ball, like we're probably best off, just Zach just take off running whatever. But I won't lie, it was tempting. It was tempting to put in the old school sprint draw back in the day there.
yeah. Definitely a '90s baby. Just for fans now, and maybe they don't even realize I grew up when people in high school were still running the wing T offense, which has developed to no spread, no huddle, a whole bunch of stuff now. But that's a topic for another day. Last thing I wanted to get into in regards to situational ball is, similar to what we mentioned with, screen game, draw game, is it almost is the only, I mean, how do I want to phrase this? Coming off a turnover is, we have to take a big shot just for a momentum swing, or because I feel like, that's one of those things where it's like, you get a turnover, hey, watch them take a shot, watch them take a shot. And most obviously it's a common trend, and maybe it's something that's been in the game for, a while, just like we just mentioned. But is that more times just, you're trying to capitalize on the momentum from getting a turnover?
Yeah, I think that maybe that's part of the equation. The biggest part of the equation on shot plays, the way I learned it, the way I came up is, so you get that turnover, right? And you're probably around midfield-ish.
Yeah.
Okay, so you call that shot play, it's probably going to be a touchdown. You're not going to waste it and get down to the 5, and all of a sudden you got to execute your way into the end zone. So it's probably going to be a touchdown. And if it doesn't hit, now you got second, and say you end up having to punt, at least you still maintain that favorable field position. Like we were playing Munich this year at home, and they got the ball just past the 50-yard line. And I was like, here comes the shot. And sure enough, they took the shot deep. And one of our guys like, how'd you know? And I was like, that's an NFL thing, man. You cross that 50,
Yeah.
like, Coach Troop coming from the NFL. I'm like, I know they're taking a shot right now
Yeah.
because that's what everybody in the NFL does. You get across that 50, you're taking a rip at it, because if it doesn't hit, the punt has to come. You're hoping you pin them down there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because it's like, these are tendencies that are like, I feel like at least in America, and maybe it's developed in Europe. I haven't been in Europe in a couple of years, but they're like commonly known, but still being executed, even at the highest level when it comes to like the NFL and stuff like that. So I'm glad you brought up situational because that's where I wanted to go, and I had to. You helped me understand some aspect of why, certain things are still, you know, the way they are in terms of seeing the game from an offensive mindset. Um, as we mentioned earlier, head coach of the Barcelona Dragons, and you've been through that organization, and then you come to the Rhein Fire. Obviously, we know what's going on in Barcelona. They're under new management. Things are being run differently. And then obviously we've seen the Rhein Fire, who seem like from the outside looking in have been running things the right way since they came into the league. In terms of what you've seen from being on both sides of the spectrum, what are some of the keys in terms of organizational success that's going to help this league with sustainability?
Yeah, the biggest difference between those two, and um, a lot of these teams, it's easy to say any team in on the planet, it's easy to say you want to win, but to do the things that it does take to win, that's a whole different animal, right? You actually have to put in some work to actually win. Okay, so I've been with teams that say they want to win, and I've been with teams that do what it takes to win, and it's a drastically different deal, but it's also resource based, right? If you don't have the resources, like you just in our league, it's club ball, and you've seen it, American college ball is now Euro club ball. There's no difference, right? It's pay for play. Um, at least our guys are somewhat geographically restricted because I got a job in Dusseldorf. Like I've been doing my job for 10 years. I can't go somewhere else. I have to stay here and play. It's like, thank goodness I don't have to worry about re-recruiting this guy. I know he's going to stick around. This and it blows. I hate it. I hate every minute of recruiting. I just don't. It's not for me. While
It's
we're on the
not what it
topic,
used to be.
I'm gonna just I need to plug myself here real quick. If
Plug it
there's
up.
anybody, and I'm sure this is how many viewers do we have? Is this, are we thousands, tens of thousands? If there's any players here in Europe that want to play on a team that I'm coaching with, please contact me. Just contact me and tell me and send me your highlight tape, because I don't know who everybody is. There's one player in this league that I'm desperate to get at some point, and he signed with another team this year. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, I didn't know that you were even leaving that team. And he was like, yeah, coach, you didn't show any interest. And I'm like, I just assumed that everybody lives there. Like, you're not going to another team. Like, I'd love to have this guy on my team. And it didn't work out, obviously. But I was like, please, next time, just contact me. So anybody out there, you want to play Rhein Fire, or if they fire me and I end up with wherever, just send me a message. All right. Uh, and I don't know where I started with all that. I had to get that plug in while it was on my mind. What were we even talking about? How did I
No,
get off on a tangent? I get too many tangents.
we were talking
Okay.
about organizational success, and then you talked about
Yes.
recruiting. But listen, this is the locker room. If you got something to get off your chest, let it be known.
Organizational success has to come from the top. And the biggest reason I decided I wanted to go to the Rhein Fire was Jim Tom Sula. And I know that he comes from the same background per se. Okay. He's had to work a lot harder. I'm spoiled the way I came up. He had to work hard to get to where he is, right? And I just kind of got handed stuff and was in right place, right time. But Jim had to work hard, but we come from a similar background where we understand how things worked in the NFL, and we both believe that a lot of that is the right way to approach things, right? And so it was a no-brainer after talking to him. Like, this guy has it together. Okay, he's not just saying he wants to win. He's going to do things to improve the team and do what it takes to win. We had played a game there. I'd seen that they had, 7, 8,000 people in the stands. And I was like, hey, they can probably pay me. Like they probably have money. Like
That's some
that's not a
coin.
bad option either. I like
That's some
money.
spare money in the chamber.
Yeah, so I knew that I'd get paid, and I knew that they had their act together, and so that was a pretty simple decision when it all came down. And that's what teams. It's not a complicated formula, right? It's what everybody needs to strive for, and I think that the league has taken steps in that direction. But it's going to boil down to fan interest, right? We have to get fans in the stadiums,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
casual fans, like, if they want it to continue to exist, they have to keep showing up. And I would implore those people in Barcelona, the fans in Barcelona who were awesome fans. The only problem was there was only 900 of them that were
Yeah,
consistently showing up,
one
and
of the
that's not
one of the most
sustainable.
fan
There's no
bases and
way.
one of the most fun fan bases in the leagues to
Oh my
watch. Like
goodness.
that year too was a great year to watch the just the support you guys got and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Talk about it. I mean, an unbelievable fan base. It's a shame though it's small, right? Those guys, they got to continue, and those fans would work to get more fans out there. They were working hard because they understood that's what has to happen, and it's not just in Barcelona. It's everywhere in this league, and it's hard to believe that you see some of these guys signing places, and you're like, well, they got like 3,000 people in the stands. Like, how are they paying all these guys? So anyway, see, I digress on that topic, but this to continue with a league like this, because it's not cheap to have a full football team that you're paying, right? Like, that's why spring football in America never works, because they're paying these guys a ton of money, and it's
Trying to
just like
make it work, but we'll see.
they're
Let's
just
see what happens with the UFL.
they're just, well, and they had to merge because they're just burning money, and so now they're hoping they burn less money, but it's like, guys, like, it's just the way it is. Um, So, there's a money burn, and fans are the only way that you can support that. And so hopefully it continues to grow and interest continues to grow. One thing that might help, the Olympics coming up, and now it's a ways away. It's 4 years away, but if the US sends NFL players, I kind of, I equate it to the dream team back in 92. Like, if the world gets to see their guys from their country competing against the best that the US is sending out there, hopefully that can generate more interest. Now, we're a long ways away from that, but you saw the explosion in basketball now here 30 years later, whatever it is, globally. Like 30% of the NBA is now like international players. It's something
Yes.
wild like that. And
Yeah.
I think I read that stat on an ESPN article. I could be totally wrong on that. I could be
The,
100% wrong.
the game is
But
definitely more global than it's been for
right.
sure.
And hopefully that continues. And so we'll see. We'll see if there's a catalyst but again, I'm on a tangent. Like, the fans are what's going to drive this thing. If the fans show up, we got a chance. If they don't show up, the ELF goes away and you go back to national leagues.
Most definitely, and that's fair to say. The fans are just as important as these teams, these organizations, and these players and stuff like that. So, um, last question, my friend. One of the things that I wanted to dive into now that we're moving forward, 2024 Rhein Fire. Obviously, you bring back Glenn, you bring back Jadrin, Harlan Kofi is a big grab. You lose some offensive linemen due to retirement or going to different teams. You lose three of your top receivers in Mahungu, Robitaille, and Willie Patterson. Obviously, this Fire team's going to look a lot different, but maybe that opens up the window for a new star to emerge. As you look at 2024 Rhein Fire, more specifically the offense. What gets you excited heading into this season, being that it could possibly be a different challenge for you?
Yeah, the thing that's got me most excited is that I'm not starting from square zero or square one with this group. We still have a good chunk of the group back. And so the teaching that I have to do, it's not new to them. A lot of guys, it's year two in a system. And this is my, of 3 seasons, it's been starting over, and it's been brutal. It just drives, it's hard for me to just start from the top and be like, okay, I got to re-record some videos. So now I can just push out the thing I recorded last year and be like, okay, watch it again. But we got such a good group, and I like that there's always a challenge as a coach to try to figure out what it is we're best at, and the core of what we had is still there, right? We dealt with those receiver injuries last year. We were fortunate we were never missing two guys at a time, but Anthony missed time, Roby missed time. Willie did an awesome job filling in for Roby. Harlan missed time at the beginning of the season, but it was never overlapped. So we always still had two receivers. And if we can continue, a football season is a battle of attrition too, right? And whoever can stay the healthiest for the longest usually, or whoever's healthiest at the end, usually finds a way to be in the big games. And so if we can stay healthy and we can continue to improve the group that we have, I think we're going to be just fine, despite the losses. And hopefully we still got some surprises for you in terms of who's coming and who's showing up.
All right, well, we'll definitely keep an eye out. Obviously, season's around corner. We're, I want to say, close to 80 something days away. So happy it starts a week earlier in May now. So that's definitely cool. But hey, coach, this is a long time coming. Definitely delivered, and I appreciate you coming on, man.
Thanks for having me. And while we're talking about, well, I don't want to start the season a week earlier. I want to start it a week later. We got to go to 10 games. This 12 games. We got to go to 10 games. I'm sick and tired of playing everybody twice. I don't want to play Frankfurt 3 times. Like, it's not fun playing somebody 3 times. Okay, we don't have to play everybody twice. Let's go back to 4 playoff teams and give me a bye week that's early on so my family and I can go and travel.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I kind of
I don't
like
know if
that. Kind of
anybody's
like that
listening.
setup.
If anybody's listening, can we get these things done?
Hey, I hear you, man. I mean, family's definitely big. Like you said, it's a season of being able whoever could last the longest from a health standpoint. But yeah, I mean, it's at some point playing teams 3 times in the playoffs could eventually get brutal. Hashtag the galaxy. So
I was not excited for the third. It just wasn't. It was brutal getting ready for a third time where I'm like, shoot, I come up with 2 good game plans against these guys. I got to come up with a third, and
it's
that's a well-coached
it's
team.
it's time to go back to the wishbone, the wing
Yeah.
T.
We've got some elements. We'll break out some elements. We've been watching some NFL tape. There'll be some new stuff.
Most definitely. Well, coach, I appreciate you going on. You take care, my friend, and we'll do this again sometime.
Hard work, they don't know about it. Hard work, they don't know about it. Hard work, they don't know about it. Animal.